Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another training provided by the Mental Health Association of Monmouth County in partnership with the Society for the Prevention of Teen Suicide and the Greater YMCA of Monmouth County. Today, we're going to be talking again about support, control, and structure, self-care for educators still in a climate of uncertainty. You guys all know me by now. It's Nicole Nolan, and I am the Adolescent Grant Coordinator for Suicide Prevention at the Mental Health Association of Monmouth County. I am also a school social worker and a school counselor here in Monmouth County as well. So today we're going to go back and visit a little bit of the self-care training that we provided to you guys back all the way in July when we had no idea what our school year was going to look like, and see how we're doing. How is COVID life different from the fall? July, we had a whole bunch of different worries. We didn't know what the school year was going to look like. Some of us were excited to go back. Some of us were hesitant. We didn't know how many of our students we would have in person, how we would balance the teaching between hybrid and in person, and doing too many things at once. And what I found the most in talking to educators and in talking to a lot of my colleagues is that when September rolled around, we were just happy to have some sense of normalcy back. So we were almost riding in the beginning of the school year on that adrenaline wave of, we're out of lockdown, I'm going to see my colleagues, I'm going to see some of my friends, and I'm happy to be out of my house. Some of us were still teaching from home, so we felt really comfortable with that, but we were getting back to some sort of community connection. And I think in the beginning of the school year, that was really healthy for us. But I think it also kind of sheltered us from the fact that not really much had changed. And it led us to burnout. I know a lot of teachers, a lot of school counselors, a lot of school support staff, a lot of administrators who at this point just feel really, truly burnt out. It's a completely different feeling in the second half of the school year. Like I said, in September, we were just so excited to be back. And now we're realizing, hey, we came back to a really crazy situation and we're really feeling the burden of that. I know for a lot of you, as we move into the end of the school year, we have more and more students coming back into our buildings. A lot of you guys really had your special education students in the building more consistently. Now we're having, the general population really kind of mixing back in. Some people may be very happy about that. Some people may be hesitant. We're rolling out this vaccine. We've got good news there. So it's still kind of that climate of the unknown, but in a sense, getting back to some sense of normalcy. We still have standardized testing, whether you agree with it or not. This is where we're at. Our kids are stressed about it. We're stressed about it. We're rolling into finals for our middle school students and our high school students, and we're getting our 8th graders ready to transition into high school. We're getting our high school students ready to transition into the workplace or after high school life or college. We may have a lot of failing students. We may have had students that maybe haven't submitted a single assignment this entire school year, or maybe have dropped off since after Christmas break or after, the December holiday break. Time. What's extra time? I don't know about you guys, but I felt a lot more balanced in the beginning of the school year than I do now. And so that's something that's really been, kind of affecting me and affecting a lot of my colleagues, is there's just not enough hours in the day to balance between multiple roles if you have them, teacher to partner to maybe you work another job after school, maybe you tutor, maybe you're a parent, maybe you're a volunteer. It just seems like we're really stretching ourselves thin, especially as we get closer and closer to that beautiful summer break that we are all just looking forward to. So I'm going to start here, and we always have to start with a laugh. Me and Maureen and Marnie, if you've been in our other trainings, are always saying, you got to come up for air. And I think that this training would be a mess if I didn't start from a place of it really acknowledging, how we feel as educators and people in the education system right now. So this was back in December for me. I don't know how you guys feel, but that was the amount of energy I had left for this school year. And so, as we're coming out of spring break and we have really about 2.5 months left in our school year, the beautiful thing is I say that in one breath and I recognize that it is a very short period of time. But then I look at my calendar and I see very little breaks or days off or half days or, anything to break up the school week. And I know that this is probably going to be the longest 2 weeks that I may have experienced in a very, very long time, or 2 months, that we're going to really go through here, and we're going to have this testing and we're going to have finals and we're going to have all types of things to do that, sometimes goes left unsaid in our thankless jobs. So first, we acknowledge that we have very little energy left to address this school year. How are we going to care for ourselves in that instance? I don't know. You guys get a meeting and you get a meeting and you get a professional learning collaborative and you get more training and you get some PD. Just add that all on top of everything else that we need to do. You know that these are going to be things that we have to do in school as well. So, as an educator, we know that this is sometimes some frustrating stuff. Sometimes we get a good PD day and, we enjoy it. And other times we sit there and we're like, this is a meeting that could have been an email. Please let me go home. And finally, I know we're all thinking it, we're just trying to make it through this school year, and everybody, including myself in this training, is shouting at us, we can't forget to practice self-care. I think at this point, we have forgotten what self-care looks like. We don't know what it means anymore. Some of us may be really, really good at it, and some of us may be really just so burnt out that if somebody even suggests to us that we need to take care of ourselves, we're going to be like, hey, there's a whole bunch of other infrastructure things here in the education system that we need to address first before I can even do this self-care thing, because it's going to be, not even worth it. I hear you guys, and I know we're all thinking it. In school social work, we talk all the time about, micro and macro, and the micro is us taking care of the self-care of ourselves. And then you have the bigger picture of school, which is the infrastructure stuff that we really may disagree with right now. And while we certainly are able to form coalitions and working groups and all of those different things to address the bigger picture, we also have to remember the micro, that you're not going to have the energy to be able to tackle some of those things until we practice some self-care. So I had to bring it up because I think there's so many trainings out there that will come to you guys and talk to you in school and say, do self-care, do meditation, do this, without acknowledging that this is what people have been saying to you all year. They've been saying it since last March, and it's getting tiresome. It doesn't mean that the message is any less important. It just means that I'm starting from where you guys are at, and I'm hearing you and I'm hearing your frustrations. I really hear that piece of, we want some better structure in place in our schools or in our systems or in our country or in our lives, and to sometimes get the word practice self-care put back on you be a little invalidating. And with Lifelines and all the suicide prevention work that we've done for our youth, the first thing we always start with is that ventilation and validation. And we hear you. So with that in mind, what is still stressing us out? What is still bothering us as educators? We have ever-changing policies. There's new guidelines coming every day from the CDC. Recently, we just learned that now instead of 6 feet, we can have kids 3 feet apart. Some places have desk shields, some are just doing masks, all different types of things. And I'm going to estimate with you guys that we're going to see some big changes right up until the end of the school year. So very stressful. Mentioned it before, state testing, burnout. Talked a little bit about that before with just us as educators. We're also seeing our kids burn out. And now when our kids burn out, that impacts our classroom management, our students' behaviors, our students' performances, all different things that impact us as an educator. So that is really something that is changing day to day sometimes for some kids and some populations. And it really adds another level to our work. Maybe we have lesson plans made, or maybe we have other things that we need to do, and your kids have a bad week and you realize you got to scratch it and got to go back from the beginning. Lots of feelings of anger and resentment. As we move past this year anniversary, we are really finding that people are resentful of having had lost a year. Maybe there were milestones in their life that they missed out on. Maybe there were simple traditions. There's loss of life, certainly, that people are rightfully angry to, going through this pandemic. And, I think for our students, they've really lost a lot of things that provide support, control, and structure in a school year. They've lost out on some of the school traditions that you guys have. And I think that's hard for educators too. If there was something special that you did every single year since you were an educator with this group, this age group that you have, and all of a sudden you're not doing it this year, and you see these little guys come in every day, or you see your seniors or your high school students and they don't get that experience, we have to acknowledge that anger and that resentment too, that we get to miss out on something that really brings us joy. And then another announcement, there is no virtual learning option for September. For next year moving forward, we are going to somehow be all back in person learning. And I think that brings up a whole bunch of issues for us looking forward to the future. What about kids that really didn't participate this whole year? Are they staying behind? Are they moving forward? How are we getting them up to speed? Are kids that weren't engaged coming back to school? Do I feel safe going back into school completely in person with no option? There's a multitude of questions that we have with that virtual kind of decision that was made about a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago, and with little information on what it looks like. And again, we know that May could be a completely different world from what it is today, but also, September is going to be completely different as well. Think about where we were at this time last year. We were still kind of in lockdown and not moving and not going anywhere. And then schools opened in September. So there's going to be some big changes this summer. I'm just going to remind you guys to take it easy on yourself. We're still in a global health emergency that no one has faced before. There's a lot of guesses as to when it will end, what the vaccines will do, moving towards herd immunity, all of these different things. We're still living in a constant state of the unknown. Still feeling anxiety right now. It's still normal. We're still going through a lot of different changes. We're coming up on the end of the school year. We're getting ready to decide if we want to go back next year, if we're making changes in our lives, if, we are prepared, if we were happy with how we taught, we're evaluating ourselves. So I think that right now is a high level of anxiety for, teachers, but just remembering that it's normal that we all feel this and that we felt it for so long. It's what we do to address that chronic stress that's most important. And again, it's normal for people to regress in times of stress. I think, some people sometimes struggle when they say, I've been in this situation for a year. Why do I seem to be falling apart now? Does that resonate with a couple of you guys? I know that it does for me, because I feel like I push through the crisis. And then maybe when it gets a little quiet, or maybe I've just gotten a little bit of a handle on, the chaos, that's where I start to regress, or that's where I really start to, feel burnt out or have a minute to think about what it is that I actually have gone through. It's normal to take regression, and I think sometimes regressing or pushing back or limiting yourselves on what it is that you're doing is actually a form of self-care, and sometimes something that we need. And our minds may not tell us that we need that, so our body takes over and does that regression and does that self-care for us. So we're going to check back in with control, support, and structure. What has changed since July? So we're going to check in with ourselves. Remember all the way back in July, if you took our first training, we made some boundaries and we made a contract. How are those boundaries working for you? Have you altered them? Have you revisited? Remember, we said that contract was going to be a working document. Have you added more? Have you taken things away? Are you doing okay? I think this is a big, big piece, is sometimes you're in the mundane nature of everyday living that you forget to say to yourself, I was really crabby today. I really took out some things on some people who didn't deserve it. I was pretty angry. Maybe I was isolating. Maybe I didn't get together with my colleagues the way that I would. Self-awareness is critical. I know that it's hard now to do things and take mental health days and have people question whether or not you're sick and all of that different stuff. But if you are teaching in a capacity that is not true to your nature as an educator, you need to take a step back and say, how can I get back to the top of who I really am? Do I notice myself going down this apex kind of maladaptive coping? And how can I get myself back to that top? Maybe it's spending extra time with your kids. Maybe it's spending time with a loved one or a friend. Maybe it's taking a weekend and going somewhere that we're allowed to go right now, just something short. The weather is beautiful, sitting on the beach and just being. Giving yourself some credit, remembering that the kids are missing some significant milestones just as we may be in our lives, and remembering to practice grace with yourself, with your colleagues, with your administrators, with your students. The same way that you want people to be forgiving of what you're going through during a stressful time. Maybe you came in one day, you had a bad day, you didn't act yourself. Same thing goes for an administrator. Same thing goes for a student. Same thing goes for a parent. Having that self-awareness to say, this has been a long school year and we're really, over it. We're ready to move forward. We're ready for that first day of summer. Okay, so we're revisiting our meditation skills. I brought this up a little bit. Back in July, we were at the beach, we were at summer, we put meditation in our toolkit so that we could think about places that we wanted to go during the school year when it wasn't as nice. Maybe we weren't allowed to travel, maybe we couldn't travel, maybe we didn't want to travel. Now we can go there. We have the luxury of living at the Jersey Shore. So we do not have to meditate on this. We can physically go to this place. I threw this in here. Any 30 Rock fans, Liz Lemon, I want to go to there, right? You just find this beautiful place that you want to go to and you go to there. Now, if you can go to the beach, you go down to wherever it is that you like to go on the Jersey Shore and you sit there and you have a beautiful day, a beautiful afternoon, that's great too. But if your meditation skills want to take you somewhere else, you want to go to Paris, you want to go to Mexico, you want to go to Canada, you want to go to a bunch of different places, maybe you want to go to Disney, remember to use those meditation skills and go to those places. Remember to do that when you're in the classroom too. Sometimes I just take a big deep breath, I close my eyes, I have my kids work on something silently, and I just envision myself at a place that I'd really like to be. And my kids know me well enough, they'll be like, oh, Mrs. Nolan, what are you thinking about? And I'll just start a conversation with them. We take 5 minutes out of a lesson and we talk about places that we're looking forward to going to. I learn a little bit something about my students, and we all have done something that is grounding us. And guess what? My teachers typically come back to me and they're just like, that class was really good for me after your block. How did you do something? Yeah, we sat, we meditated, we talked about liked interests, shared interests. Just a little breather to come up for that air. I want to revisit this quickly. We did this activity and we had things that we can control and remembering the things that I can't control. I think that this is super important as we are addressing more changes and policies and school protocol and the Department of Health and the CDC suggestions. That's everything that we can't control right now. The decision to have no virtual option maybe it was a great thing for you, maybe it's something that makes you nervous. Can't control that. That's on the outside. You have to push that and compartmentalize. Things I can control. My thoughts, my attitudes, my reactions, my efforts, asking for help and taking care of myself. Let's revisit your contracts. I'm not talking about your school contracts. I'm talking about your personal contracts for how you were going to set boundaries for this school year. Did you follow them? I'll tell you the one that really worked so critically for me was after 5 p.m., no emails. Not answering an email, not doing it. Over breaks or over days off, I typically don't, in previous years, put up an away message that says, I'm not answering emails today. I'll get back to you when I'm back in the office. Just because everybody is either, away and not a lot of people would reach out, or if they did reach out, I felt that it was, it was always one or two that I could respond to. This year I said, nope, unless it's a true emergency, I'm taking my time. This is me time. I am taking this break. I am not even thinking to check my emails. I'm not even thinking to do this. I will wait till tomorrow. And I always had a plan in place in case there was an emergency and somebody truly needed to get to me. And guess what? Didn't happen. Didn't happen this school year after 5 p.m. There were no true emergencies for us after 5 p.m. And if there was, it was usually that, maybe somebody had gotten sick and, contact tracing or this or that or different things, as my peers have told me. But again, emergency situations, that parent or that co-worker, well, maybe not co-workers sometimes because, we like to work together in that collaborative environment, but that parent, that email, I can wait until tomorrow. What worked for you guys? What didn't work for you guys? What boundaries did you think you upheld? What ones did you struggle with? Reminding you guys to find a helpful perspective. Don't take it personally. Again, parents are stressed, kids are stressed, you're stressed, your colleagues are stressed. Don't take these things personally. If I have a little bit of a tiff with somebody, I give them space, I pull them aside, I'm like, hey, listen, we usually don't have things like that go on between us. So I figure out a way to revisit the conversation later on, and I bring it back up, and I make sure that we're both okay. Remember to take a deep breath and get perspective. Talk to somebody else about the situation. Maybe it's a friend who's outside of the school, doesn't have school experience. Maybe it's somebody that you know and you can trust. Stay in the here and now. Again, we talked a lot today about projecting forward to what next September looks like, or the end of the year, or even next week. Plan for today. Identify a specific problem. This goes back to that micro and macro thing that we were going back and forth. Today we're talking about self-care, which may be frustrating to you guys if you feel there are other things that need to be addressed so that you don't get burnt out, and I get that. Try to identify the specific problem and tackle that in the best way you can. Don't catastrophize. This is really hard sometimes, especially in the climate that we've had. Just everything kind of comes crashing down sometimes, but try to remember to stay with that specific problem and don't make everything go to being a quote-unquote bad day. If something happens for 15 minutes, or you have a bad block, or you have a bad lesson or a bad class, a challenging class, doesn't mean the whole day was bad. I do a lot of work with this on students. Yeah, you had one thing that happened today in comparison to the, let's identify it, 12 other things you've told me that was good about today. Remember to work with your administration. They're going through just as much of a hard time as you are with limited information, trying to figure out who needs to quarantine, these types of things, challenging parents, different changing guidelines, just as much as you have it coming from you at every ankle, your administration does as well. And, our administration, I would like to believe, in most cases, really do work in the best interest of our students and our educators. And, work with them, talk with them. They are not mind readers, and we are all in a state of crisis thinking right now. So we have our blinders up and we're running on that adrenaline. If there's something going on that you think, may have a better solution, bring it to them. That might not even be on their radar right now because they're dealing with problems X, Y, and Z. But you have problems A, B, and C. At the end of the day, remember that structure organizes chaos and provides control. We have some sense of structure that we've been working with all school year. So even that little bit of anxiety that we have, stay in the now and focus on a specific problem. Helpfulness always counteracts helplessness. So if there's something that you want to change, be the voice, bring it up, talk about it. Self-care doesn't have to take hours. It could be a little 5-minute thing you do with your class. My favorite thing is before I have to go pick my kids up from sports or after school, I get an ice cream cone alone in my car. Chocolate vanilla soft serve twist with rainbow sprinkles. I don't know why, makes the whole day better. Stop trying to be so positive. There is such a thing as toxic positivity. We don't have to be together all the time. It's okay to not be okay. Surprise yourself. This gets harder as we get older. I remember this was one of my bad coping skills when I was younger, but if I did something that was particularly stressful, I would reward myself with either a big ticket item that I wanted or shopping or something indulgent. And I don't really do that anymore, right? Because I have all these bills to pay and I have these things to buy for my children and I have, professional continuing education, all of these things. Eventually I just say to myself, you got to do something nice for yourself today, and you're spending a little bit of money on yourself. So what are we doing? Laughter is the best medicine. Just goes without saying. And, you have that with your colleagues. You can talk, you can laugh, you can build it. And as long as it stays on that level of not being super negative and toxic, you can sit back at the end of the day and sometimes just say, this is what we deal with as educators. This is hilarious. I think one of the biggest things that I say all the time is about some of the challenges we have in schools, right? I say to my colleagues, I was like, well, if this is what they taught me in peer supervision when I was going for school social work and we were talking about case studies and this and that, and they would tell me that this is what I was actually going to be dealing with, on a regular basis, that would have been funny. I don't know, what about that, but you guys too with your teaching groups and when you were teaching in schools, the whole deal of like, oh, this is what I'm going to have to be doing too. Not just worrying about my curriculum or passing the praxis or all of this. This is what day-to-day life in education is going to look like. And remember, at the end of the day, we are so close to summer break. We are 2.5 months away. It is going to be here before we know it, and it is going to be so good and so well-deserved. So, if any of you guys have seen Frozen 2, my Olaf here is very, very good at dishing out some mental health advice. And if you've seen the movie, what happens, or if you haven't, what happens in the movie is this big storm kind of spirit comes through Arendelle, and it forces all the people to leave and evacuate the town, and they're up in the mountains, and it's very scary, and they don't know if they're going to go home, and they don't know what's happening, and they don't want anything to happen to their family and friends in their community. And so Olaf is allowing all the little children to make icicle beards out of him and take his arms off and move his nose and all of these different things. And one of the characters says to him, hey pal, are you doing okay? And he looks at him very calmly and says, well, we're just calling this controlling what you can when things feel out of control. So instead of panicking and worrying about what's happening to the town or if they have a place to sleep, he's just sitting with the children, enjoying their company, enjoying their innocence, and enjoying their laughter. Thank you again, guys, for coming and participating in another one of our webinars. We have gotten such great feedback from you guys on everything that we've provided this year, and it means just so much to us as we continue to do this work to really give you guys meaningful tools that address everything that's happening this year for our students, for our teachers, for our parents. And I thank you again for really trusting in us in this process and participating in our programs. We always like to leave with a quote, and it is in the shelter of each other that we live. We've shared this before, but we are really nothing without our community. We are social animals, and we've been back in school, and you guys have been doing a wonderful job. And for that, we thank you so much for taking care of our children.